Fittings for the lab are small and unassuming, but they ensure the performance of analytical fluidic systems. Fittings connect tubing systems and devices and seal them. Usually, a fitting consists of a nut and a ferrule. Those two components are combined with one-piece fittings. Choosing a fitting depends on various factors, for example, the thread, the geometry of the input port, the diameter and material of the tubing, and finally, the temperature and pressure resistance of the material. The application also plays a role, whether you want to connect tubes in an HPLC or GC system. The first major component of a fitting is the nut. It transmits the force to seal. You can find nuts with internal threading or external threading. These are the most common ones. There are several head geometries available for externally threaded nuts. The choice of head geometry depends heavily on available space and personal preference. The ferrule is the second major component of a fitting. It secures the tubing and seals the system. Metal ferrules are not reusable and cannot be removed. In contrast, ferrules made of PEEK, for example, can be reused. Ferrule and inlet port must fit, otherwise leakage will occur. For low-pressure connections, a flat-face ferrule is typically used with a tapered nose facing the nut. In high-pressure systems, ferrules with conical input ports are generally used. To attach a fitting, remove the protective cap from the column. Thread the nut onto the capillary. Then attach the ferrule. Screw the nut tight by hand. The ferrule is positioned inside the column. Use 2 hexagon wrenches to fix the whole thing in place. In order for the nut and fitting to fit properly, both threads must match. Therefore, it's useful to know the thread callout. The thread callout is a combination of 2 values: the outer diameter of the thread in inches, or as a number from 1 to 10, and the thread pitch, which is the number of turns per inch. Common sizes for the laboratory are 1/4 inch 28 or 1032 nuts. If you don't know the thread callout, you can also determine it yourself. Measure the outside diameter of the thread in inches and then count the revolutions. The first turn is the 0 point. The thread here is 1/4 inch long. To get the turns in an inch, we multiply by 4. With 7 turns, this results in a thread call of 1/4 28. The advantage of one-piece fittings is that the nut and ferrule are one piece. Many one-piece fittings can also be tightened by hand. Whether you want to choose one-piece or multi-piece fittings, it often depends on convenience and price. Both nut and ferrule are available in a wide variety of materials, such as PEEK, PTFE, or stainless steel. Plastic fittings have several advantages over metal fittings, including wide selection, high chemical inertness, and reusability. On the downside, they are less pressure resistant than metal fittings. PEEK fittings are the gold standard for many analytical applications. Many users are unsure about combining different materials in one system. In general, plastic fittings can be combined with ports and tubing of any material. On the other hand, metal fittings should only be used with metal tubing and ports. When using metal tubing, follow these steps. First, make sure there are no kinks in the capillary. Then position the pliers perpendicular to the capillary and cut. The cut surface should be at a right angle so that the capillary and fittings close tightly. The question of how to avoid dead volume when attaching the fitting is an important one in practice. Remove the cap from the column. Thread the nut and ferrule onto the capillary tube. Screw the fitting into the column while pushing the tube into the column port as far as it will go. If you pull on the capillary and it doesn't slide out, the fitting is properly seated and you're preventing dead volume. In recent years, manufacturers have advanced fittings and made them easier to use. Marvel X fittings create a connection with zero dead volume. Tighten the fitting and with one click, you're guaranteed a tight connection. Restex EXP hybrid ferrules combine the strength of titanium with the sealing properties of PEEK. If you need help choosing the right fitting, please contact our team.